Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of our weekly coaching webinar. And we're really glad everybody could join us. So today we're diving in to a topic I've talked about maybe once or twice over the last, 5, 6, 7 years. And this is something I haven't talked about in over a year and a half, and I should because it's blowing up right now, which is podcasting. And I love podcasting for many different reasons. First of which, it's free. And I love free stuff. I love any free way that you could market, put out information and education. It's not completely free, but it's almost completely free. And I'll talk to you about that today as we go through this. But I love anything that can get you a ton of customers without spending any money. That sounds good to me. And podcasting is one of these things. I can tell you that we try a lot of stuff. And I don't know, maybe 20% of it works, maybe 30%, somewhere in that area, 20, 30% of it works, and 70, 80% of it doesn't work. Podcasting is one of those things we tried, and it was a home run, and it's worked very well for us, and we continue to do a lot with it. And here's why. You're looking at something I just pulled up, and I'll show you two graphs that I think are pretty interesting. So what you're seeing here is podcast listening in the last 13 years through this year based on the percentage of U.S. population. This isn't worldwide. So these numbers here are the percentage of the U.S. population listening. 2006, 11%. 2015, 33% of the US population is listening, and it's in last year 44%, and it's projected to grow to 51% this year. So that means more than half of the US population over the age of 12 years old is listening to podcasts. That's 144 million people this year are listening to podcasts. And I can tell you, this is the future. I had a real honor of going and doing lunch with Steve Forbes and a friend of mine, Jason Pfeffer. And Jason's the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine. Extremely interesting lunch because we have the titan, the veteran of the media industry in Steve Forbes. And Jason's a young guy, way younger than me. I think he's in his early 30s. So then we have the rookie, the new guy on the block, right? And as I sat with these guys, I asked him, I said, look, what's the future? What do you guys think the future of media is? And both of them overwhelmingly agreed that it's audio. They said, look, we've come out of video. Video has grown. We've seen it blow up. The future is audio. We're going to start seeing a lot of things converted to audio because people now want to listen on the go. They want to listen. Their attention spans are so short that they can't even have time to watch video anymore. It's all audio. And so it's very interesting for me to see these two perspectives of the veteran titan and the rookie coming into the space. And both of them agreed exactly the same on that. The audio is the future. It is where we're going. As a matter of fact, we're converting everything to audio. So that way people can play audio on our website and other social channels instead of actually having to watch video. It is the future. When we look at advertising revenue from podcasting, again, it's telltale to this as well. So in 2013, we can see here, 20, maybe 10 million, being spent on ads on podcasts. We look at 2018, we're up here to now 610 million. So, in like 5 years, there's now $600 million more a year being spent on ads for podcasting. And we can see where this is projected to go well over that, right? That's like what, I don't even know. It's like a lot. I think in millions, that's like what, 1.6 trillion or billion? That's 1.6 billion, I think we're going with here with this chart. It's a lot. So you can see the growth, everything that we look at here, and it doesn't matter what graphs we look at that show it, we just see, and here's, again, how many percentage have listened to a podcast or aware of podcasting. We now see 6 out of 10 are aware of that. So we see through 2017, it just doesn't matter what we look at. Every single graph is exactly the same way. It's going straight up. Not straight up, but it's going up pretty steeply. So this is something that we all really need to be paying attention to because audio is the future and podcasting is where it is if you are going to get into a good audio segment. So how do you do this? How do you get in? What's it like? We're going to map it all out today. And it's as simple as this right here, Libsyn. Libsyn. It's all you need. It's the only tool you need to podcast, guys. Well, I'll talk about some more tools, but you really only thing you need is Libsyn. Libsyn. Libsyn is a syndicator. Libsyn takes your podcast recording and it puts it out to all the different channels that your podcast goes out on. What I like about Libsyn is there's a ton of different destinations that you can add. So when our show goes live, it goes live on Libsyn, of course. It goes live in Google Play. It goes live on the Android app, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, iPhone, iPad app. It goes on their podcast page, radio.com. It goes to Spotify, Tumblr. And these, I think, there's even some more beyond this, but you could see here that our one podcast, thanks to Libsyn's help, goes to some pretty major places, including Spotify, Tumblr, and iHeartRadio. That just helps it get listened to a lot more. And of course, it goes to iTunes as well. So Libsyn is fairly easy to set up and fairly cheap. What we have is the highest level version, and I'm pretty sure our price is $75 a month. So it gives you an idea. I think to start, we started for less than $50 a month, $20-$30 a month. So that's not a lot of money considering what you're getting. And then what Libsyn will help you do is take that podcast recording and put it online. So what you're ultimately doing with a podcast is you're just recording the actual show. It starts there. So I use Zoom. Zoom is what I use, and many people are familiar with Zoom. Now, I used to use Skype, but now I use Zoom because Zoom lets me do video, audio, and I had all kinds of issues with internet connections with Skype that I've never had with Zoom. So I recommend starting with Zoom. Zoom, again, is very, very cheap to get started, and I try to, say very cheap, like under $20, right? I mean, so this, you can see it started with free. This is what I use. And I think our company now is upgraded to one of these, and I'm on their account. But again, I used my own Zoom for a long time, which is the free version. So it's free or $15 a month to get started. You can record audio and video. Now, my advice is to record both. What we found was that, when I'll talk about many reasons why, but the bottom line is you get your guests more exposure and you get more mileage, let's say, out of the actual content than you would if it's just audio or it's just video. So how the process starts with me is I actually come in, well, let's start with the very, very, very beginning of this process. How do you even get these guys? Well, first of all, what I find is this. I'm going to actually give you, let me see if I can find this. I'm going to find something real quick, and I'm going to give you a good place to probably get started here to get guests. So let's talk about that. So podcasting, it really starts with finding guests. So here's this guy. I'm going to open this up right now. I'm going to open this up and show you here. Okay. This is a good place to go to start. Now I'm going to give you the goods and the bad of this, but it's a good place to go. It's podcastguests.com. Podcastguests.com. If you go to podcastguests.com, if you get on this guy's list, he has all podcastguests.com. He has all different kind of podcast guests are on the show. Their contact information is there. I recommend that you do get started. He'll send you emails every week with the directory update, but you can look at the directory. There's my buddy Josh. I love Josh. Josh, if you ever want PR work, this is the man right here. Josh is the man when it comes to PR. So you can go through here and look, and you can see a lot of people here. Some have experience, some are qualified, some aren't experienced, and you can even contact them all right from this site. So a really, really, really good place to be able to get started. Now, you can also start with your clients, your friends, your family, people that have things to share, right? As entrepreneurs, we know a lot of other entrepreneurs, and a lot of other entrepreneurs obviously have something to share. They have something to talk about what they do and how they do it. So there's a million ways you can get podcast guests, starting with just your inner circle of all the people that you already know. Okay, now, our podcast started in the very, very beginning. It started by actually just taking our old content, and then all we did was we just made it into podcasts. So let's start and look at our very old one. So our episode 1, you can see here, we actually ended up doing a dump. what we did was we took all of our webinars that made sense to become podcast, we converted them to MP4s, and we just dropped them on iTunes. That's how it all started, just to see what would happen. And then we got a lot of traction after like 6 months, and then we started to actually do interviews. So you could see here that the first 29, 35, 38, the first 57 episodes of our show never had a guest. All they actually were webinars that were converted to audio format. So I tell you that because even if you don't, there's a lot of different styles and formats to podcasting. Some people don't even interview guests. All they do is teach. There's a bunch of different styles. You maybe want to start and figure out what your own style is going to be. I figured out my own style a year into the process to figure out what it was going to be. Okay, but the first 57, all we did was take webinars, we converted them to MP4s, we dropped them into Libsyn, they went onto iTunes, and boom, that's how we got started. Then we realized we had traction. Then we started to realize 6-9 months later, people were starting to listen, and then we started getting guests. Then we started actually coming in and getting guests to be on the actual show. And again, how do you get those guests? Well, there's this place here. I just told you, podcastguest.com. The other thing that you could do is you could just go into Google and you could just look and find podcast bookers. Podcast bookers. Now, Podcast Booker's entire job here, and that's not the company, I'm just telling you people that book podcasting. Okay, Podcast Booker's not the, I guess I should say, when I say Podcast Bookers, I'm not trying to refer to this company. I didn't even know there was a Podcast Bookers company until I said it. I'm just saying identifying an industry of people that what they do is book podcasts, okay? So there's a lot of these different sites that are out here and you can contact them, and their whole job is to take people and get them placed onto podcast shows. That's what they do. So if you're going to them and say, I have a show and I want a guest to be on there, and if you're somewhat professional and you've got the show put up together, which I'll show you how today, where it looks pretty good, then there's a good chance that you're going to start getting these podcast bookers' attention, and then they'll just start sending you guests. Okay, that's what will end up happening. So here, I'll give you an example. Let me give you an example that just came through today. Okay, so today I got this email right here from Peter McCrew. I do not know this guy at all. He comes from, I don't know, the Australia, and he says he's with Go All In Podcast. Well, he approaches me and says, Peter here from Go All In Podcast. I left a 5-star review on a podcast page and hope to help in some way. Very smart way to get my attention. Very smart. Even attached a picture of him leaving the review. Circling back to suggest a guest for a show. Then he tells me the bio of his guest. So I have no problem finding guests. As a matter of fact, if you're on my show today, which is June, your episode will be released in September. That's how many shows we've already done. We are 3 months behind on release dates. And I do that because in the summer, I'm only available every other week. The end of the week, I chill. I go do stuff with my kids. Like we just went to a rodeo last week, okay, because they're off for summer vacation. And when they're in school and play soccer, I don't even see them. So again, I get far ahead because I know I take some time in the summer to get away, but you're going to have no shortage of these. Bottom line, once your show starts to get out and you start to get episodes released, these guys come out of the woodwork to try to book people on your actual show. Now, that being said, you also may want to actually go and have somebody else put you on their show, okay? So I use a company that I highly, 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 highly recommend called Interview Connections. And I'll tell you a little bit about Interview Connections. This is owned by a lady named Jessica Rhodes. And I listened to Jessica. She was part of some webinar and she got on and talked about podcasting. And I thought, man, that's pretty smart. Like, why don't we podcast? We'll just take our webinars and we'll convert them to MP4s and we'll put them on Libsyn. She's the one that introduced me to Libsyn. She told me the steps. I followed what she taught me in that webinar. We got Libsyn. We dumped our podcast on here, and the rest is history, per they say, right? All these episodes hit. We started to get traction, and then we started to get guests. Now, what was interesting was when we started to get guests, and we started this show, and the show started to take off here, the first 50 episodes, guess who contacted us? Interview Connections. They said, we want to put people on your show. And I said, that's hilarious because Jessica got me into podcasting. Like, your owner is the one that got me here. So yeah, I would love to have your guests on my show. And they started to contact me with all these episodes being successful. And they started to book these guests, their guests, their guests, their guests. These were all their guests, their guests. Well, that's a friend of mine. These were all their guests that they introduced me to. They introduced me to such great people that I bought their services. I pay like $350 a month, and they book me on 4 podcasts every single month. Now, do I get my return on investment on that? Yeah, absolutely. It's paid for itself many, many, many times over. Not because a lot of people listen to their shows and bought, but more because the connections I've made. I've done joint venture partnerships and all different types of things with a lot of these guests and made tremendously more money than it cost us to get started. So I pay interview connections. I've been paid them for years because, again, they got me my initial guests here, and my initial guests were awesome, and I ended up hiring them. Then I also have other people like Mickey here was one of my friends, okay? So I put some of my friends on here too. But again, in the beginning stages, they were the ones that were lining up these guests. Then what happened was as the show got bigger, these guys started coming out of the woodworks. And what I started to do was make it very, very, very easy to work with them. So when I get an email like this, I vet them. Does the guy talk about something I'm interested in? And in this first one, there's something called a one sheet that they send. A one sheet. I kind of feel like I'm all over the board, but I'm trying to walk through this in order. I promise you I am. So then he came back in, and I think this is the same guy. Maybe it's not the same guy. Chris Benson. No, Peter Micker. This was another guy today that came the same thing. He said, hey, you know, no, I'll talk about that one later. So the bottom line is these podcast bookers start to come from everywhere. You can find them online. I just showed you a place to get podcast guests. There's no shortage of people that want to be on podcast. So once I have the actual guest lined up, then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to get something from the guest called an actual one sheet. Okay, and you can see here that here's an interview, or here's an email chain with somebody. Here's somebody at Interview Connections introducing us. Hey, it's a pleasure to introduce you, Chris. You can use Ty's scheduling link. I've given Interview Connections my scheduling link, and they're booking them on my show. Okay, here you go. And so then I'm coming back and saying, hey, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity. Then he's responding, say, I appreciate the opportunity. Let me know if there's anything you need. And I said, yeah, send me what's called a one sheet. And he responds and said, boom, here's the head sheet. These are the same things I always ask for. I ask for a bio, their headshot, and I ask for a one sheet. And this is what a one sheet looks like. Now, if you're going to be on a podcast guest, then place like Interview Connections can help create your one sheet for you. They helped create my one sheet. I didn't know what it was. They helped me create that process. They do it as part of their process. And this is a one sheet. A one sheet has a bio. A one sheet has suggested topics. A one sheet has suggested questions, and a one sheet has other credibility stuff, which I don't think I can see here with my little PDF, whatever thing this is here on the bottom. No, thank you. And you can see his URL links. Sometimes on your one sheet, you're going to want to go ahead and show. Let me see if I can find my one sheet. I'll see if I can find mine too. But again, this is a standard one sheet. Bio, suggested topics, suggested questions, okay? So what you're going to basically want to do is if you're going to be on shows, you're going to get one sheet. You're going to make your own one sheet. If you're not going to be on shows, then what you're going to do is you're going to want to get a one sheet like I did here. I need your one sheet. I need a headshot. I need a bio. Now I have everything I need to actually write up the interview. And what I do is I come in and create what's called I come through and I create let me look here. I create what's called an interview sheet, and that's just something that I basically create that. It's what I call it. It's not an industry term. I just made it up. Okay, and what my interview sheet looks like. Let me see if I can find one here. Here's Brock with Lindio. Here's what my interview sheet looks like. My interview sheet will have the bio here. It will have the topic of the podcast at top. And then it will have what will eventually go on the website, the show page for the website. And I'll show you that in a minute. And including a show resources, which are links that we talked about during the show. Then it has my questions. These are my interview questions. These are questions I asked during the interview. Now, all that I put here during the show we discuss, it's just these questions made into a statement. Determining the type of loan suitable for your small business. Well, um, how do I determine the type of loan suitable for my small business? Here's the question. How do I determine the type of loan suitable for my small business? I just changed some words and made it a statement. Determining the type of loan suitable for your small business. How to get a startup loan. The question I asked is, how do startup businesses get funds if they get rejected from a bank? So again, I'm writing out questions that's relative to that person and the topic. Now, I don't do this anymore. I now outsource this. I found a virtual assistant on Upwork that works part-time, and I basically send her the one sheet. And then when I send her the one sheet, then what happens is she then makes this whole document up for me, and it now saves me time. And I can tell you guys that, I didn't do this until about 3 months ago. Until 3 months ago, I made my interview sheets. For years, I did it. And then I finally hired somebody else to do it. I also tell you that she sucks a lot of the time. She gives me questions and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to ask any of those. And I ask my own anyways. But again, it gives me a guide. If she serves this up for me, it at least gives me a place to start with potential questions. I always start with about 20 questions. Now, what I like to do is just start with what I want to know from the people. Quite honestly, that's what I want to do. So I just had somebody on the other day that was all about nootropics. Dude, that's awesome. I want to know about nootropics, brain drugs. I hear about them all the time. I don't know anything about them. So I listed every question I wanted to know about nootropics. Are they healthy? How do you know which one's right? What's ingredients in these things? Are they all natural? Are there side effects? Are they addictive? Like, I wanted to know all this stuff. So Brock here, he runs Lindio. Pretty simple for me to figure out the questions I want to ask him, right? What trends are they in lending? How do startups get money? What's the benefit of having all financing sources in one place? So again, it's fairly easy in a lot of cases to map out the questions. Some cases it's a little bit tougher, depending on the person that's going to be on the show. And those are probably topics you want to avoid. But in the beginning, when you don't have a lot of guests, you might not be able to. Does anybody else having sound issues? Type in yes if so, because Ralph said he had an issue with sound. If you can hear me okay, just type in yes into chat just to make sure, because I have a sound issue. Okay, now. Okay, cool. All right. So I have an interview sheet. So I come in, I found the guest. Now I put together an interview sheet, bio from their one sheet, questions I'm going to ask, questions made into statements, website links they're going to have. Okay, now I have this. Now the next thing I'm going to do is schedule the interview. Now to schedule the interview, my advice to you is to go with a service called Calendly. Calendly is free to use. They're 100% free to use. I started with them. I went to a paid service and I'm now back with Calendly. Calendly's super simple to set up. It's an easy scheduler. And once you have that done, then you're good to go. Now, the next thing I do is I also come in then and I put together an email that I'm going to send when I get that introduction. Okay. So here's mine. Okay. Guest introduction is the same email. And I have a folder called emails to send. I don't know about you, but I do this all the time. Okay, I take the same email I'm going to send and I put it in a folder. So all I have to do is just copy and paste it. So this is mine. Hey, thanks for thinking of us. We'd love to have this guest on the show. Here's our scheduling link. To ensure the interview goes smoothly, please send us a one-sheet professional image and some sample interview questions. Thanks again. Now, the key with podcast bookers is I am fast to respond to them, very fast. I want to be the simplest person they've ever worked with. So when they send me over an introduction like the one I showed you, hey, this person could be a perfect guest on the show, I'm vetting that guest pretty quick. And the next thing I'm then doing is sending that email pretty quick to them saying yes. And just so you know, I almost always say yes. Very rarely do I say no. And again, if you're going to do a really high quality show, you're going to have to say no a lot. But I say yes a lot because I like to make my podcast bookers happy. And almost anybody they send looks like a good potential guest. And again, people that come from podcast bookers are groomed appropriately, meaning that I had a one sheet done because I worked with a podcast booker, right? Interview Connections helped me do my one sheet. Interview Connections taught me how the process works. Interview Connections taught me how to be respectful in the things that podcast show hosts like. They groomed me. So I'm a very good guest because I was groomed by a company that books people on podcast. The reason I say that is that I had problems here on this other show about that I showed you right here, podcast guests. I grabbed a lot of these people and they were horrible. They didn't have one sheets. They didn't know. They would ask me all these questions about podcasting that they didn't understand. So again, I don't run into that with podcast bookers. I don't use this site anymore. And I hate to say that because Josh is at top and he's phenomenal. He does not need any coaching at all. But you got to be careful. If I'm using bookers, then they like professionalism. They like you to be professional. If you're responding for somebody to be on your show, they like you to be professional to the actual show host if you're going to be on somebody else's show. So to review here, we went through, okay, and the next thing, what we're going to do is we're going to go in. We are going to use Zoom. We're going to record audio and video. Now, when it comes to other equipment, you don't need a lot, okay? I now have a professional microphone, and it's a ART microphone. It's a good one. It's like $80. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say it took me 3 years to spend $80 on a good microphone. But up until then, I used a Logitech headset microphone. It's what I used for years in my podcast. I finally decided to step up, and I bought a Canon EOS 80D camera that I now use for my video, and I bought an ART microphone. And it wasn't cheap for the camera. I think it was like $600. The mic, it was $80. It's like $700 in total equipment. Before this, I only had a Logitech webcam that was high def. It was like $80. And I had a Logitech headset that was like $50. So I spent $150 in equipment. Basically, my webcam and my headset was all that I used. And I did just fine for that as a guest and a host for many years before I stepped up to more professional equipment. So now we've got them scheduled using Calendly, and now it comes time to the show. You've already now got your interview sheet worked up. So you already have your sheet now prepared for the interview with your questions. You're jumping on. And if you listen to any of our shows, and I'll give you a link, or you can see the link at the top right of our page to go to iTunes, you see how I do them. It's pretty simple. I'm just coming apart and asking them questions. Okay, now you'll see here, I indent the questions I actually ask. There's a lot of questions in this interview I didn't. If I ask this question, I hit tab and I indent it, just so I know for my own record the questions that I actually asked and I didn't. A lot more questions here than I needed. And I'm going through and asking questions. For the most part, it's pretty simple because they're coming in, they're giving me detailed answers. The flow goes well. I record mine for 40 minutes. No clue why. That time frame is what they ended up being. You could do it 15 minutes, you could do 30, you could do 40, you could decide the time frame. When I get them into the Zoom link, I say, here's how, you have any questions for me? No, not really. Yes, they do. And I tell them how it's going to go. We're going to go about 40 minutes. I'm going to do a 3, 2, 1 countdown. I'm going to then hit record. I'm going to introduce and do an introduction here from your bio. And then we're going to jump in and just have a conversation. I'm going to ask you questions and we'll just see how it goes. And they say, okay. And then we're off to the races. And that's exactly what happens. I ask the first question. We're off to the races. Now, Zoom doesn't record my picture when they're talking. So it gives me time to look at my next question, prepare, and when it comes back to me after they answer that question, to be ready to answer that next question and be ready to go. Okay, you want to, of course, block out any background noise, anything like that you have. I have this thing called Knox, K-N-O-X gear, and it's like this sound buffer that sits on top of my microphone that blocks out the sound. Again, fancy equipment just got, not something I had for years, very cheap to get. So that'll block out some of the background sound, and boom, I record it. Now, when I have it actually recorded, what'll then happen is it will then come in to a folder automatically on my computer called Zoom. And the folders, it records like these here, right here. Now, what I do is I come in and change the name of the folder to the person that I interviewed, okay? And then I come in and the Zoom link, the Zoom folder will have it like this. It will give me an audio, and then it gives me video. This is video, this is audio. What I do is I change the name on it to make it simple. Bo Henderson video, Bo Henderson audio. Then what I do is I put both of these on my server. I use an Amazon S3 server, super cheap. I store a lot of stuff. When I'm trying to move videos, documents, I use my Amazon S3 server. I go to the server, I drag and drop the document onto Amazon's S3 server. I then make it public and I share the link with whoever I'm sending it to. In this case, I send this to Joni, who is my virtual assistant. She's my main assistant. She does a lot of stuff in the company, but from inception, she's worked as my assistant from the beginning. Okay, so I then send this to her. Now, what Joni is going to do is a couple things. Joni is going to put the show on Libsyn. So before you get to this point, you're going to want to set up Libsyn. And guys, it's pretty simple to set up. If you go to settings, when you get in here and you go to show settings, this is the show. You set up the title, you set up the show slug. It'll teach you what this is, your show description, the website address. This is the page I have here where all the shows are going to be. I created this on, we'll talk about this page here in a minute as well. Okay. And then here it is. It's episodic. It's tag keywords. It's public. Here's the email address. Here's our Facebook URL, our Twitter handle, all kinds of other stuff you could put in here. I didn't put any of that in here. You're going to have to create the image here. I don't know the size. Libsyn, what here, 14 by 1400. My advice is don't choose a crappy image like I chose. I got to get rid of this image and get something with my face on it, because that's what people want to see. They want to see personalized. They want to see your face. Get something with your face, something like that on there. A 14 by 14 square, you put it here, and boom, you're off to the races. That is the show. When you set this up, you're done. The show's set up. Now you're going to need to set up destinations as well. Okay. And you're going to want to do that, so you're going to want to set up the destinations as well. So let me come to show you that. So destinations, if you go to add new, it's pretty simple. They're going to give you the choices of the new ones you want to add, and then you just add them. Radio.com mobile. So you just click add. And then every one has some different information you're going to have to set up. Now, I already set this one up, but you can see that they ask for pretty much the same information that I already entered in the show settings page. So it's pretty simple. Adding destinations, they typically ask for the same information that's in settings. And once you've done that, like, you're set up, you have your destination set up. I think it took me 30 minutes to an hour to figure out Libsyn altogether. Libsyn all in, I'll say an hour. Completely set up, completely ready to go, completely done. Libsyn took me an hour to set up the settings, the show settings. It took me an hour to set up the destinations, an hour total for all this. Then I'm good to go. Now when I have content, we just come to add new episode. This is what Joni does when she gets the episode. She uploads the video file, and then she's adding all the details. Well, the description's simple, right? We already got that. We already teed up the interview sheet with the entire description. Here is the description, okay? This is the description right here. The description is the on this show we discuss. So for her, for the interview sheet, she copies and pastes the title. She copy and pastes the description here, the category, the keywords, pretty basic stuff here. Okay, I don't even mess with any of this stuff. The Apple, I do put the Apple title in here. The podcast summary I copy from here, and you're pretty much done at that point. I'll go in here to some actual content. Let me look at episodes previously published so you can see what our previous publish looks like. How do I do this? Let me see. Edit. Okay, that should be good. And then you can see, oh, wow, wait a minute. Okay, so here's the file. So the audio file was uploaded. You can see here on the show we discussed, copy and pasted. She didn't even fill any of this out, so she doesn't need to. That was a new section added. Never taught her to do that. No artwork for it. Okay, we schedule it for release. We schedule in the way that we now do our podcast. You can do it however. We do an episode we do 2 episodes a week now. One episode is my webinar, my YouTube live that takes place today, Tuesday at 1 o'clock. We put the YouTube live up there, then an interview, then a YouTube live, then an interview, then a YouTube live. So on like Tuesday, we release the interview, and on Thursday, we release the YouTube live. And you can see we're pretty consistent now with an interview and a YouTube and an interview and a YouTube. So you can do whatever format you want. That's our format. Okay, so we release 2 episodes a week. And again, not something we did in the beginning. But once I started interviewing people, I wasn't going to stop using my YouTube content for this. So what I did was I now do it every other week, 2 episodes a week. We have enough of these in the cooker interviews that we can schedule these and regularly and consistently release 2 episodes a week. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I'd release 1 until you have more content that you know what to do with, like what we do, and we release 2 a week. So that's it. She puts this in and she's done. Now, before I do the audio, I do send it to my audio guy. And my audio guy, or actually I don't, Joni sends it to the audio guy before uploading it here. And what she does is she just basically comes in and she adds an intro and an exit. So if you go to our website, creditsuite.com, and click on the top right up here, you can see iTunes. If you click on that, you'll go to iTunes. You can listen to our intro and our exit. I just basically wrote up a description of what I wanted the person to say. Okay, my voice what I wanted the intro to say, what I wanted the exit to say. If you want to figure out what the intro and the exit says, you could easily play the intro, play the exit, and hear it. I got it over to my voiceover girl, my video editing guy from, Fiverr or whatever, then put some music to it, okay? Some AC/DC, because you can never go wrong with AC/DC. So she put AC/DC with the actual intro and exit. And then when Joni sends it to my video guy, I never have these edited. So never have I had an episode edited. We have 300 episodes, 283. These are the ones that are released. We have over 300 that are done that haven't been released. I've never edited them, not one. I'm not saying you're not going to need to. I don't care if I'm not perfect. I don't care if there's mess ups. I tell people that's part of the show. They like the reality of it all. So I don't edit them. All we do for editing is we add this intro and we add the outro on there. And I'm just trying to open this up real quick to see if I can figure out. I'm just going to look real quick to see if I have the script for the intro and exit. But so let me look and see if I have that. So he adds the intro music, he adds the extra outro music, and then we are good. Okay, and we have an actual podcast that he's going to put up. Oh, here we go. Here, cool. Dude, that's awesome. Here's my intro, here's my exit. Welcome to the Business Credit Financing Show. Each week, we're talking about the growth strategies that matter most to entrepreneurs. Listen as we discuss the secrets to getting credit and money to start and grow your business. And enjoy as we talk with seasoned business owners, coaches, and industry leaders on a variety of topics from advertising and marketing to the nuts and bolts of running a highly successful business. And now to introduce the host of our show, financial expert and award-winning author, Ty Crandall. You've been listening, and then here's the outro. You've been listening to the Business Credit Financing Show with your host, Ty Crandall. Watch for our next episode to get even more insight on financing and growing your business. And don't forget to check us out online at creditsuite.com for even more business growth strategies, right? That's my intro. It's super simple. Had a voiceover person record it, put some AC/DC awesome music behind it, which you are supposed to have permission and rights to, which I'm a rule breaker there. Don't follow my lead. Do as I say, don't do as I do. Okay, and then you have your intro exit. So now my video guy adds the intro onto it, the outro on it, to it, gives it back to Joni. Joni uploads it, sets it up, schedules it. We're done. The next thing Joni does is Joni has the web page for each show created. These are our web pages. Okay, now I learned from the experts that if you want to get it shared, you need to make your page really shareable. You want to make it something that makes the guest look really good. So here's what ours look like. It has the title of the podcast on the image. It has the image of the guy, not a very good image here, not flattering at all. I don't like this. The episode number, and then it says Ty Crandall interviews industry leaders as heard on iTunes and all these other ones because it makes them look good. This makes them look good. Typically, I'm not going to talk about making somebody look good with a blurry picture. Let me go to somebody that have a better shot right there. Okay, so it makes them look good because this makes them look good, right? I mean, they can see their name really big. They see their picture. They see that they're heard on all these. They would share this because it makes them look good. The other thing I do on our show pages is I have a motion GIF image here added to their call to action. They always want somebody to do something at the end of the show. Go to a special link. So I add motion GIF. It stands out. Okay, look how that flashes. That's really cool, man. See how that goes to black and white and color? Pff, I love my video guy. He's awesome. So what happens here is this makes their call to action stand out. I'm doing that because I want them to share this page. I want them to share it with their audience to make them look good. And if I make them look good here, then they're more inclined to share it. So I have this big, beautiful image created. I have this motion GIF created. Then look at this. Wait a second. This looks familiar. This is exactly what we have, except they messed up spacing here. Gotta fix that. Exactly what we had on the interview sheet. Here's the bio. Here's the questions we ask. Here's the show resources. Then I add a little flair, and I have one of these created. Okay, and this has really cool music to it, and this is called a trailer video. I get these done on Fiverr. You could find this exact same trailer video everywhere. Okay, and the trailer video is just the topics we talked about. There it is. It's the same topics we talked about. It's just a shortened version of those same topics. So all we did was take that interview sheet. We take about 13 of the different topics, and we give them to them, and then this is what it looks like. Okay. And this is really cool music with it. So think about that. That makes the guest look really good. So now the guest has an image they can share. They have a page they can share. They have a video they can share. So this makes them more inclined to share it with their own audience, right? Which gets us even more exposure here because they want to share it with their audience. And now we are done. We released the episode and it's all over. So we recorded the episode. I got the episode to the assistant. You don't need an assistant. You could do exactly what I did. She uploaded it, entered some information here right in the beginning. That's exactly what we did. Okay. So again, in the end here, we did exactly what I did exactly what she did. I rarely do anything that a VA, I rarely have a VA do anything that I didn't do myself first. That's just how I learned to run a business, right? I think I should do it. Then I teach somebody else to do it. A lot of stuff I now don't do that because it's not even worth it. It's just worth it to have them do it at the beginning. But I did this stuff first, so there's nothing wrong with you doing it. It's very simple to set these up. You release it and you're done. The thing, Libsyn's going to release it. Libsyn's going to push the thing here to iTunes everywhere on the date that we provide, and it's over for us. Now, when this goes live, then what we do is then we send this to them and say, your podcast episode is now live. Share it with your network. We give them all the assets, the image, a link to the video, everything they need to promote it, and then we're done. That interview is over. So this is exactly why, this is exactly the process we do. Now, we also go and we now add it to YouTube as well. So we add it to YouTube. And again, what we do there is we're basically coming in and just adding it to our channel. So let me see here. I want to see something real quick. Kent. Okay, let me find, what was his name? Ken Wentworth. Okay. So Ken Wentworth. I don't know if this will work or not, but let's see what happens here. Okay, I don't even know if his video is live on YouTube. So let's go somewhere else. Let's do something else. So let's do business credit. By the way, I always do this because I want to rank higher. So whenever I'm looking for our own channel, I'm public here. Then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and find our own channel. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to go to playlists. Oh, I don't want to play that video. And then I want to come to the business credit and financing show. Let me see if I can find that. Okay, other important topics. I don't even see it here. Business finance suite. I must have missed it. Business credit building, business credit reporting, starting a business credit business. I don't see our business credit financing show, which I don't know. It doesn't let me go more than this. I don't know. That's weird. I don't know where that playlist is. I cannot seem to find it. Let me see if I can go to all playlists. Let's see if I can find it here. Technical difficulties on a live webinar. Business loan brokers. Okay, business credit financing show. Okay. So I didn't want to do that. What I want to do instead is I want to come and go to view full playlist. Is what I want to do. I don't want to do that. I want to see me talking. That's not to do. Okay, so here's the playlist. You can see here. Okay, and now what they're supposed to do is put the person's actual name here, as you can see. So let's say Steve Lowiz. Now this is one of the reasons you do it. Let's see if we can actually see it. L-O-I-Z. L-O-W-I-Z. Okay, so let's see Steve Lowiz here. And I want to see, because I'm just curious to see, you can see we rank pretty high here for that name. Not as high as I'd like to. And the reason for that is because we didn't just put our name as him. If we just made the title of our podcast Steve Lowiz, then we would be probably one of the first searches here. But I'm showing you a secondary benefit here. One of the secondary benefits here is that you can actually make this name. You can actually come in and you can actually make this name where you're getting SEO for this. So what happens now with Steve Lowiz is that I'm now ranking on YouTube for his name. Now you can also see here 60 views. We did not get him a lot of views. Some of the other people we get a lot of views, some of them we don't. But you can see here that we're ranking in YouTube for his name. Now the other nice benefit of podcasting is Steve Lowiz. Let's see here, is that you can also rank pretty high here for in internet searches for that person's name too. Okay, now I don't know if this is going to work or not. I think I have it right. Steve Lowiz, I think, is what we have here, L-O-W-I-Z. So I don't really see that he's ranking really higher. So let me see. And again, I'm just showing you some of this because I want you to see some of the benefits here. Ken Wentworth. Well, let's go to something that's a little bit more seasoned. Connie Steele. Connie, S-T-E-E-L-E. S-T-E-E-L-E. Connie, S-T-E-E-L-E. Okay, so sometimes you'll see that we rank pretty high here. Our show could show as one of the top searches for that person. And so these are obviously bad examples because it's not always the case, but it's pretty nice secondary benefit is the fact that we can rank here. You could see podcasts are ranking pretty high here for her name. So sometimes you could get first page of Google for their name, and you can see these are all podcast episodes here just because you actually done it. Here's ours. So on this person's name, we're on page 3 when you search her name. So again, sometimes we're on page 1, sometimes we're on page 2, sometimes we're on page 3, but this is secondary benefit. Now, every guest I have on here, I'm now ranking on YouTube, page 1, pretty high up, okay, and I'm ranking on Google and for SEO here too. So secondary benefits is that now I'm getting all this other ranking because I actually have people on the show as well. So that's basically the format of how we actually do podcasts. That's the whole process. Now, a lot of benefits here that we haven't talked about. First of all, a lot of these people we have on the show, we're doing joint venture relationships with. So we ask these people, if these people have a pretty big email following, they have a pretty good big email group, then what we do is we then do joint venture webinars with them. So Frank Cottle here, he actually is with Alliance Virtual Offices. I met Frank on a podcast, loved him, and we now have recommend Alliance to all of our clients. All of our clients now go to Alliance to get their virtual offices because I met Frank here. Okay, we do joint venture webinars to his group of people. So that's what we do is we now come into a lot of them. I send Letitia a lot of business. Okay. So we find these people. Mark Podolsky, this guy's brilliant. I'm telling you right now, just so you guys know, I bought this guy's system and I now do what I love what he does. He actually teaches you to buy raw land and sell it. I think it's brilliant. So I bought a system, and that's something I'm really interested in getting into. So we do a lot of business with these guys as well. Okay, what we do is if they have a pretty good following and their demographic is ours, like they're dealing with entrepreneurs, then we ask them to do joint venture. Let's work together. Let's do some joint venture. And a joint venture means I might promote their offer to my audience, and I'm going to promote my webinar to their audience to make sales. So the podcast has paid for itself 10 times over, 100 times over because of the joint venture relationships I've got out of it, let alone all the sales we've made from being a guest on these people's show, not to mention all the people that find us because they go to search for them on YouTube or Google and their searches come back to us. So a lot of benefits. Here's another benefit of podcasting. I'll show you right here. And the time we've been doing it, we have 210,000 downloads. Imagine that. Imagine 210,000 people for nearly free listening to you talk. Okay, your teaching, your education, your interviews, 210,000 downloads. Now, I can't say that's people because it's not all people, right? These are people listening to a lot of different episodes, but that's 210,000 times our podcast have been downloaded. And you can see here, and I'm going to go to page 29. I'm going to go back as far as it will let me because I need to show you what failure looks like. Okay, and people don't call this failure, and you can call it whatever you want. This is failure. These are all of our first ones. Look, see how I told you we did a dump? Look, 22, 22, 22, 229, 29, 29, 29. Here's us just dumping all of our webinars on iTunes, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 episodes. How many downloads do I have of all time of those 8? Well, that's not very good. I can't show you that because these are all new, unfortunately. If I showed you historically, you'd realize that most of these 27 were 0 in the beginning. It doesn't show you that. It shows the recent months here, but it doesn't show you all the old ones. It doesn't show you all the old dates that it was released. The reason I'm trying to show you that is what I'm trying to show you is that in the beginning months that these came out, nobody downloaded them. There were no downloads. It was 0, 0, 0. Nobody was downloading this at all. And what I commonly say is that the biggest mistake I made was that I never looked at how many downloads we had for 9 months. And then in 9 months, guess what we had? We had downloads. I'm telling you this because everybody quits. Everybody quits. 90% of people that start podcasts quit. They quit because nobody downloads their stuff. Who cares? It doesn't matter if nobody's downloading it. The process is so simple and takes so little time, and you're meeting such good connections, and the SEO benefit is so much But it doesn't matter if people listen. Who cares? Because what's going to happen is eventually, like Rocky, okay, you're going to eventually take so many hits, you're just going to win. You're going to win because iTunes is going to realize you ain't going away. You're a force to be reckoned with. And then they're going to start driving people to your show, especially if you drive traffic to your show. You email your podcast to your audience. We release our podcast on our social media pages. We do a lot to promote our podcast, and we make the show page really appealing for the guests, so the guest will then show it as well. My goal is to get the guests to share it. John Dumas, not sure if I pronounced his name correctly, really big in the podcasting space, taught me that. He said he got his show off the ground because he made the show page so compelling and make the guests look so good that the guests were sharing it so much that that's what got him his jump to make him one of the biggest podcasters in the world now. And so that's what we did with our show page. And we promote it on our social channels, and we promote it through email. You promote the show to get the views, and don't get frustrated that you don't have very many views in the very beginning. It's okay. Okay, it's okay. Look at this. April, May, June, 1, 4, 4, 0, right? Now let's look at our new episodes. It's the exact same thing, but let's look at the actual page. Wow, what am I here? Page, it won't take me. I don't know where I am. Page 5. Let's go to page 1. Where am I? Was I on page 1? I am on page 1. Maybe I'm on page 29 is the new ones. Oh, yeah. Okay, so these are the new ones. A little bit of a difference, right? So now look at our new ones. This one, 200 downloads, 260, 436, 427, 37. Guys, these are in a month. These aren't total. These are in a month. This one for 200 for downloading how to invest storage units, he got 281 in May. We released it in May. He's 2 months in. That show's been listened to nearly 500 times, 481 times. Look at that comparison. Here's our original content. Okay, where is it? Here's our original content, 1, 0, 0. Here's what happens when you're persistent. As entrepreneurs, we're persistent. Now look at them, hundreds of downloads a month for those episodes, okay? So again, and you can see these don't have 0 in May. These were just released in June, which is why they're there. We have a big following of people now. So this works, obviously, and you can see that what it looks like in the beginning. This is what failure looks like, and that's okay. I will fail my way to success all day, every day, because I won't give up. I'm persistent. I'll fight and fight and fight and fight till I win. And this is fighting and fighting and fighting, page after page, show after show, no downloads, no downloads. Fine, I don't care. I'll win. Show after show, no downloads, no downloads. I don't care. I'll win. I will win. I will win. Okay, and so you just keep at it. You see very little downloads, very little downloads, very little downloads, very little downloads. I'm on page 12, page 13, page 14, page, oh, they're starting to get some downloads. 1, 2, 3, 4, woohoo, let's celebrate. 16, here's page 17. Okay, oh, whoa, 15 downloads. We're moving up in the world finally. Now look at us. Okay, we're at 15 downloads. Let's celebrate 15, right? Now we're at 33. That's impressive. We're moving up. Now we're in 27, 28, back in the 20s. Okay, persistent, don't care. Okay, 20, 30, okay, 40, 50, 60, 100. We broke 100. Boom, we finally broke 100. Okay, and on and on and on. Whoa. How to ensure your cybersecurity. That's how, what the heck happened there? What happened there? I got to figure that out, because you look at that. 6,700 down. That can't even be right. I got to figure that out. Something happened there, and I got to figure out what caused that, because there's no way that cybersecurity is that popular. So I got to look back and figure that. Again, the problem of never looking at your stats. Okay, so again, you can see what happens here. Now we're at hundreds of downloads. We're at hundreds of downloads now. Okay, now we're up to where we are now, or we're the most recent one. So you guys can see how this goes. It comes about not quitting. It comes down to dedicating your time to this, understanding there's benefits, because you're meeting joint venture partners. You're meeting people that can become your clients. A lot of my guests are our clients as well. This is free for us because we've make 100x off the JV relationships we have that we've got out of it, the products that we sell. I can't tell you how many of these people have become our clients, the relationships we've built. Okay, on top of the SEO benefit, there's so many benefits, even if nobody downloaded. All the benefits I just told you are with nobody even downloading it. And the secondary benefit is, it's kind of nice to have 210,000 downloads of our content for something that basically cost us zero money. So that's what it comes down to. I've shown it all to you. I've shown you how to get guests. I've talked to you about the emails that I send out when we get guests. I've talked to you about how to do the interview sheet, the how we make our show page look good, how we get the show to a bunch of different locations, how you have to be persistent and fight, and it takes time, but eventually you start getting a lot of traction. Okay. And then you should look through your statistics. Don't even look for 6 months. Don't do it. Don't do what I did. Make the same mistake I made. Set a clock for 6 months that you will not even look at your downloads for 6 months. Because if you look, you're just going to get frustrated. You're going to think that you're dedicating all this time and it's not working. It's not true. The reason that ours works is because we didn't look at stats for 9 months. And when we looked at stats at 9 months, we had downloads. We said, wow, we got some downloads. Look, people are downloading some of our stuff. But if we would have looked the first 6 months, we would have found none. That's why you got to stay with it. You got to be persistent. So I'm going to open this up. Any questions that you have, I want to make sure that they're answered. And while you're doing that, I want to go through and just think about some of the things that I might have missed. And I want to talk to you about some of those things here. So let's look at some of these on YouTube. And I'll show you why we put the stuff on YouTube. I'm going to randomly choose one. Could be a very bad example. Okay, this is 113 views. So on top of what we've been able, and by the way, this is me with my headset, you can see, and my crappy webcam. I don't care. I'm doing podcast, doesn't matter. Okay, so the bottom line is this is me with no hair. I have my hair is about maybe 1/8 of an inch longer than that now. Okay, and this is me with a crappy camera and a crappy headset. So again, you don't have to have all this professional equipment to do it. So there's 113 views on that one. Here's one that was another podcast that one's the bad example because that's 224,000 views, but that was a video before it was probably a podcast, more than likely. So I'm not even going to show that as an example. Oh, look, here you go. Here's Josh. I was just talking about Josh. Here's why Josh is awesome. Look at his podcast. Look at him. This is where I got a new camera. I got a new camera and a new microphone after having Josh on my show. Because again, this is what Josh's views look like. Okay, here's Josh talking. Look, how professional does that look? He looks awesome. Blurred out background, name up here. So Josh helped me get the equipment to make myself look better after seeing him. I looked so bad, he looked so good that I'm like, dude, I got to get the same equipment you got. And he helped me get the equipment. And I haven't figured it all out yet. Like he just taught me how to put his name up here like this. I haven't done this stuff yet, which is awesome, his website and stuff like that on there. But you can see that, again, that is, and this is no views probably because it's not made public yet. But you can see the quality of what that can do. So a lot of things there. It's Calendly, the scheduler. So I'm going to open this up to any questions you guys have. I want to make sure that those questions are answered. And I'm just looking here to see if there's anything else you really should know. But I think we went through everything. I can't complicate this. It's pretty simple process, really. It just comes down to doing those things. That's a step that I take. So how much time does this take? Well, an interview takes me 40 minutes, and I don't prepare the interview sheet anymore. I do about 2 interviews a week. So that's how much time I dedicate. I dedicate about an hour and a half to actually doing interviews in a week. And I like them. I don't know if I'll give that up. That's one of the last things they'll take from me. I'm no longer the person being interviewed anymore. Now, Steve, our business development team, he's now the guy being interviewed. So I'm not that guy anymore. But I am still the guy that interviews. And I do about 2 to 3 interviews a week. And then that fills up my pipeline. And then that way, if I want to take weeks off from podcasting or whatever, I can do so. And I have that pipeline where we can release that regular content as we do. And make sure you keep an eye on your statistics after 6 months. Don't look at these for 6 months. You'll get frustrated as well. But Libsyn's super simple. And guys, there's other services outside of Libsyn. I just love them. They've worked well for me. And there's other services outside of them, but Libsyn makes it super simple for you to do. The biggest work initially is getting it set up. It takes an hour to get it set up. And then in that hour, I got my show image done. I got everything done I needed to do. My voiceover, all that stuff took me about a total of an hour to get done. And now it's pretty simple because you can get a very cheap VA to do the legwork for you, or you can do it. If you're doing the legwork, it may be an extra 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So with your interview questions and doing that, it could, if you're doing all the work on this without anybody helping you, it's about an hour per interview. So if you want to be safe, do 2 interviews a week. You're doing 2 hours per week. and you're good. And don't forget your webinar content could be podcast as well. So this is going to make you do more YouTube Live, more webinars, because you can make it into audio too. So you're going to end up repurposing and using it for multiple different purposes. So I don't have any questions at all on podcasting. Guys, do this. It's free. It's ridiculous. Everybody should be podcasting right now. It's absolutely free. And since 90% plus people quit, then you're in great company, because you're going to be at the top because everybody else is going to quit and drop out. Just share your content. Make sure your pages are good, where people actually want to share that content. And if you're doing these things we talked about here, you can be successful. So I'm going to wrap this up. If you have any questions, you can go to sweetlogin.com. Top, you can reach our contact information, and our contact information will get you with our advising team that can help you. This page is creditsuite.com/the-business-credit-and-financing-show. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and type that probably into chat real quick here for you all. Polls, chat, on the chat. Hi, chat. There we go. Okay, typed it in there for you all to copy and paste, and you're off to the races. Now, another good thing is one more thing I want to say is we use this as well to get in good with people we want to. So if we're trying to do a joint venture webinar, we'll invite them onto our podcast, because before the show starts and after the show ends, it's a good time for me just to small chat and get to know that entrepreneur quite a bit. And so that's another thing we do, is we'll use the podcast as a way to get to people we want to get to. Because if you think about it, if there's somebody you want to talk to that you want them to promote your offer to their audience, that's a pretty tough way in. Hey, I'd like for you to promote my stuff to your people. But if I come in and go, dude, I love what you do, I'd love to have you on my podcast, that's an easy way in. I'm asking them to come in for a free way to get a bunch of traffic for themselves. Then they come in and I start talking to them. We hit it off, and I say, man, we got to do something together. We got to do something like a joint venture thing together. They're like, yeah, I'd love to do that. I'm like, I'll hook you up with Steve and my business development team. I hand it to Steve, and then he's off to the races. So again, another way that you can use podcasts successfully. So I'm going to wrap this up. I gave you the link to the show so you could check it out, learn more about what we're doing, check out Libsyn, and hopefully you'll get your own show off the road. So I'll see you all next Tuesday at 3 o'clock Eastern here in our live coaching webinar. If you have any other questions, just reach out to us and let us know. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.